Are you ready? Let's go!
Don't you sometimes just want to talk about everything? You know, there's days when you can just talk about anything. Need to sit back and chat about nothing at all? Nothing But Julie, coming at you with fun and creative topics and interviews.
Did you hear Julie's podcast? She's got the greatest topics.
Come join the chat about everything, anything, and nothing. So unwind and tune in to Nothing But Julie. Great topics and cool interviews with some pretty awesome people. And now, without further delay, here's Nothing But Julie.
Hey everybody, it's Julie Schrager and Rhonda Marie. Thanks so much for joining me for Nothing But Julie podcast. What's up, Rhonda?
Hi, Julie. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm good.
So, hey guys, listen, we have what I think it's a pretty good topic because it's something that many of you, I'm sure, have heard of, but are just not aware of or aware that it's still something that's actually going on in the world. And so we are going to discuss human trafficking. I thought it was a real good topic with Rhonda too, because we're really good at kind of discussing our opinions on certain things. And so I just wanted to give you a brief description of what human trafficking is. And this is from the Homeland Security website. And they say that human trafficking involves the use of force, fraud, or coercion to obtain some type of labor or commercial sex act. It goes on to say every year, millions of men, women, and children are trafficked worldwide. Including right here in the United States. It can happen in any community, and victims can be any age, race, gender, or nationality. And traffickers might use violence, manipulation, or false promises of well-paying jobs or romantic relationships to lure victims into trafficking situations. It's amazing to me how in 2021 things like this still exist, and how you wouldn't even think that you're being lured into something like this if someone, let's say, has a job opportunity and,
Right.
Whatever tactics they use. And I do have a bunch of different tactics that they use, but it's very scary that there are things that I guess I was naive to and I thought was a thing of the past, just to find that it's actually more active today than ever before.
Yeah. So I did, when I was living in Oklahoma, I went to hear a victim of human trafficking speak. And they were making a big deal about it in Oklahoma because I don't know what the statistics are in 2020 or 2021, but at that time, Oklahoma, they were finding a higher number of individuals who had been trafficked in Oklahoma. And they said that is because of the interstate system. So almost every interstate going every direction meets in Oklahoma. And so Oklahoma City became a really good hub for people to head south, east, north, west, whichever direction, because it's kind of central in the middle of the country. And most major interstates coming into the area. And so I was just reading, and I actually found out that Arizona is also a high state for labor and sex trafficking because of the closeness to Mexico.
And also, I'm sorry, I know I'm going to forget my thought. And I just wanted to say, because you're close to California, I had also read that it's the number one state for human trafficking cases in 2019.
Yes. And that's what I actually just read about Arizona, was that the proximity to California and Las Vegas make it, and the interstate systems all kind of connect here as well, make it a good, and it's specifically for sex or labor in Arizona, rather than other kinds of, and that's the kind of, so that kind of trafficking, where someone gets, I didn't even know that agriculture labor trafficking was a thing until I started reading.
And you must have been shocked to read what you read.
Yeah. I was, because people get, and like you said, they get the promise of a good job and you can come, you can work on this farm, we'll give you this
Right.
job. And so they go, and then all of their identification is taken from
Taken.
them.
That's right.
And then they are essentially put to work, and they don't make any money because they
No,
have to pay for, I guess they have to pay like essentially their kidnappers.
it's slavery that they
Yeah.
put them into.
Yeah. And so they have to, and then they charge them for like their food and to stay there. Well, they're not staying there of their own free will. And
No.
so and basically they say when you earn this amount of money, you can buy your freedom. But like you said,
Oh,
that's slavery.
yeah.
Like we're all free. We don't have to stay at a job. And I didn't even know that specific thing existed in like the agricultural community.
Isn't that crazy? And they also can become very physical, like use physical force too. And I was reading that they can use like physical restraints. They can even rape and sexually assault, the victim, or do some other kind of physical harm. So I mean, there's all different kinds. That there could be the coercion, like you were talking about, or the luring into a job, and there can also be. Did you ever see Taken with Liam Neeson?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes. So
that
they took
was
his
sex,
daughter. Yeah.
and that was sex trafficking.
Yes.
And this discussion just reminds me of that movie, especially the part where he's like, I have a very, what does he say, selective set
Specific
of
set of
specific,
skills or something. Yeah.
I have a very selective specific skill, whatever he said.
Yes. And I think when people think of trafficking, that's what they think of is like sex trafficking. And
And there's also human trafficking as well. I mean,
Mhm.
it could be both. It could be one. And I remember when we were first talking about doing this topic, I I typed in human trafficking and then realized that it does differ from sex trafficking, but
Right.
but the idea behind getting the victim is the same.
Right.
And how they can either lure the victim, or like in a case like Taken, the guy deliberately got into a taxi with them to find out where those girls were staying.
Right.
And when he found out the exact address, he let the people know, and they're the ones who went in and got them.
And there's so many, I think I was reading on like why can't they get caught? Like how are these people that are trafficking other people, how are they not getting caught? And I think that's why, like in that movie Taken, one guy was like finding the victims, and then different people
Right.
are kidnapping them, and then probably different people are transporting them.
All different
So
people. So it's very
yes,
hard.
all
Yeah.
different people, so many people. And I think a lot of like people in other countries where they have a little bit more protection,
Hmm.
or like the government is less, they're more willing to look the other way, I want to say.
Could be, yeah. And
But I mean,
it's very scary also because this is there's no age range. There's no,
right,
it's not just young kids. I mean, it goes from very young kids to the, older people. Not much older, I wouldn't think. I would think still like in like a certain prime. I would say between the ages of maybe 5 through 8 to people in their 40s maybe, or 30s, depending on what it is that they're using them for,
right,
and
right, yeah.
it's so scary because I don't know if I had mentioned this to you, but I had, I think it was, I'm going to say on TikTok, where I know, so bad. I'm so bad. You're just as bad. Be quiet.
I am just
Um, where there was this couple. They were sitting outside. They were having dinner, whatever it was, with their child, and somebody kind of pretended to start talking to them. They were at the next table, but they were traffickers, and they started, saying, "Oh, your child is so beautiful," and blah 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 blah, and then really started getting into like, "Oh, how old is she? Where does she go to school? Or where do you guys live?" And it was at that moment that the mother had realized what was going on. Now, I think that most people wouldn't.
you
Most
know
people would not give out some
it's
information about where they live, but she knew.
right,
And
but
she
it's
went
like,
to grab her daughter, and they went to grab her daughter.
oh, that's so scary. Like,
It's so scary.
I mean, like as you know, like Mark has a 9-year-old, and I am so like, of course she goes everywhere with us. But sometimes I am like we've had the discussion because she doesn't know any strangers. Like she'll just talk to people. And
Yeah.
I was like, I want to put that like a little bit of fear into her, but not, you got to find that fine line. Like, and so we started talking to her about like, I was like, if someone grabs you, you need to fight them. And she was like, yeah, but, and I was like, no buts, like kick,
No.
bite, scream, yell, whatever you have to do. And I told her, I mean, and we talked about it. And because her mom was like, I don't know what to do. She talks to strangers. I'm so worried, like
You
that
should be.
that someone's just gonna grab her because she's just friendly to them. And so
Yeah.
I sat her down and talked to her, and we talked about these things. And I was like, if someone takes you, they could hurt you. There's terrible things they can do. So this is what you have to do. And so her and her mom were in the grocery store, and this is like months ago after we'd moved to this house. And Aubrey was sitting and waiting, and this man started to talk to her and was telling her what a pretty little girl she was. And she looked at him and said, I don't know you. Very, very clear and very loudly, and was just
I
like, I
love it.
don't know you. And the guy was
Yeah.
like, well, you're rude. And she was like, am I rude for saying that, Rhonda? And I said, no. I said, it's okay to be rude. Like, it's okay to be rude to people who are making you
Yeah.
uncomfortable.
Well, what kind of a freaking stranger says something like that to a little girl?
Right. Like she's 9 years old. She's a
I
little
mean,
girl. He's a
totally out of
a
line.
man by himself. Like
Yeah.
it creeped her out.
Well, it would creep me out.
Right.
I'm sorry,
Right.
but it's like you don't. No, good for her.
Yeah, and I was
All
like,
right,
I'm really
Aubrey.
proud of you. Like that's
Yes,
what you do.
good. And it doesn't matter what he said.
Right.
Doesn't matter. That was just a tactic.
It is.
Ugh.
It's just a tactic. And um Mark and I were having the conversation about how, when we were younger, we were allowed a lot more freedom than kids are
It's
now.
very true. Absolutely. And Marlo, my sister and I were talking about that too the other day.
Right. And I think it's not that this stuff didn't happen
No, of
back
course it did.
then. It did happen, but now that we know how to protect our kids better.
When I was a kid, I went to the park with my mom and dad and my sister. And my mom and dad were playing tennis, and my sister and I were kind of on our own. According to my mom, she could see us, but a car pulled up, and a man in the car pushed down his window. And I don't remember how the conversation started, but I just remember him saying, I had a tennis ball in my hand, and him saying, "Oh, you like to play with balls?" And I was a kid. I was the baby. I didn't know. I was like,
Right.
"Yeah, I do." And he said, "Well, why don't you come around here and show me your ball?" And Marlo had said that she remembered seeing that he wasn't dressed from the waist down.
Oh my
And
God.
that as soon as he said that to me, I actually, dumbass, started walking around the car, and Marlo like grabbed me, and maybe she screamed. I think she might have screamed for my mom. And he, just got out of there. But the thing of it is this was what, in the 70s? And we're talking about how much safer it was. And here I could have literally just maybe, who knows what
Right.
would have happened.
I don't necessarily think it was safer. I think we just didn't have the instant access to the news that we have now.
I
And
agree.
so we
Yeah.
didn't hear about it as much.
We didn't hear about it as much. And we've spoken about this before where, all these uh, types of people always stayed kind of like below the radar, and they would,
Yes.
be in their basements or whatever. And
And
they seem to be crawling out a little more
yes, the
than
internet
lately.
has given everyone a platform
Mm-hmm.
to have their creepiness. And Mark and I refer to the internet in our house as the wild, wild west. It's just everybody's doing whatever they want. There's nobody governing it.
No,
And that's why it's so hard to shut down these sites. I mean,
it is so hard. Yes. And you know what, too? It makes so many more people susceptible because you are everywhere.
yes.
People can find where you are unless you know what you're doing. You're found everywhere, on Instagram, on this, on that, whatever it is, and people can find you. And there could be something really bad that might happen. And I was reading this article. This was just I think it was updated today, that in Amarillo, Texas, police arrested, excuse me, 37 people in a 2-day human trafficking and prostitution operation. I mean, I just 37 people, but the fact is they caught them. They must have been following them and caught on to where they were going or what they were doing. But it was over a period of 2 days, and they were operating with Homeland Security as well.
Oh,
And it says that it resulted in arresting and charges including prostitution, promotion of prostitution, sexual assault, human trafficking, unlawful carrying of a weapon, yada yada yada, and a few other ridiculous things. And they're saying that the investigation is ongoing, but they arrested 37 people, and they have an actual list of the people and what they were in charge of. So, like you had said before, maybe the reason why they can't always be caught is because there's one person for this and there's another
right.
person for that. And you're right. I'm looking here and I'm looking at all of the different kind of roles that they played. And it's so scary. And there were women. And
You know,
they look like everyday people you would bump into off the street.
that is, yes. And so that's what I was, because I was like, I think that there are more women now, like to approach kids or
I
other young
know.
ladies because it seems less threatening. I was like,
Oh,
it's not like the stereotypical, like, creepy guy in a van.
no, no, it's
It's
everyday looking normal people that you wouldn't even think would be a part of this. And that's what's so sick is that these are American women who are helping to do something like this. It just, I don't know, maybe I have a stronghold over women doing it versus men
I,
because they're women.
I feel like I am more prejudiced about that as well. Like
Yeah, because
you're a
they can have
woman
babies.
doing
Yeah.
that to another woman,
Ugh, woman's
like,
child, woman,
or a
right?
child, like what?
Exactly.
Yes, I don't know. I mean, it's just as bad either way, but for some reason I get angrier when I
Me
hear that
too.
it was a woman that did it.
Yeah, and I don't know why, and I'm not going to try and assess it. Maybe because I'm a woman.
Maybe,
Maybe if I was a man, I'd feel that way about a man. I don't
I
know.
mean, it's reprehensible either way.
Oh, absolutely. And the fact that, excuse me, that it's still going on today, like, and it's even worse because, like you were saying, of the internet, there's so much vital information available to these people that they make accessing privacy so much easier. And it's just, there's something, ugh. So let me read off. I found this on a website that's pretty good. It's a facts about human trafficking. Let's see. Okay, so they say first that trafficking involves transporting someone into a situation of exploitation. And they say that, well, these are actually, what is this? Wait a second. I want to make sure. Yeah, facts. Okay. I thought that they were tips. Okay, do you have tips or did you not have tips?
No, I have a bunch of facts, and then I read some victim stories that were
Okay, let me read some facts and then you can tell me some of your facts.
okay.
Well, this is, oh God, this is absurd. That it's estimated that internationally there are between 20 and 40 million people in modern slavery today.
Oh my
That is,
God.
it's just astounding to me how this is kind of like, you know, it's just brushed under the carpet. It's very quiet. No one talks about this a lot. And they say accessing the full scope of human trafficking is difficult because cases often go undetected. This is from DoSomething.org. And then they go on to say that, oh my God, Rhonda, this is ridiculous. That it earns global profits of roughly $150 billion a year for traffickers, and $99 billion of which comes from commercial sexual exploitation.
So I did know that that is one of the reasons that it is so difficult to stop because it is so profitable.
And look,
And
yeah.
so, yeah, that's so terrible. What are your other facts?
Well, I wanted to say that, there is a reason why illegal drugs are still coming into the United States. Money.
Money.
And you know that our government is totally still a part of this.
Oh, I'm sure.
And there is a reason why it still hasn't stopped. If we can stop it, if it could have been stopped, it would have been stopped. And it hasn't been stopped. Well, I'm sorry, let me say this again. It could be stopped, but it's not, because you know that it's going into the greedy hands of the government, which they're saying here, that even though like it's like a global like epidemic or whatever, I still think that there's a reason why it hasn't come to a halt. And I think that there are some dirty politicians that are making a profit. And I could be totally wrong, but I mean, I don't know. After what's happened over the last few years, I feel like no one is 100%, 100% a politician. I think that they're in it for other things and for money. And who knows? Who knows if they're a part of something like this? And that's one of the reasons why it's so hush hush and no one talks about it. And it would be, I wouldn't be shocked to
Yeah,
find out.
well, because like when the Epstein thing came out and
Oh,
so many politicians
yep.
and high, like very popular people in the media and in the entertainment industry, they were, on that list and there were photos of them. And I mean, if there are, if people are there are forced into prostitution, that is, but that kind of all went away.
You know what? I'll tell you something. When I heard about the whole thing with Epstein and who was involved, and that he, quote, killed himself or committed suicide, which is
Yes.
bullshit, it wasn't shocking. I was not shocked in any way or surprised to find out that politicians were involved. And that's why I think I'm saying it about this too. You never know how disgusting these people can be, these politicians, and who knows what they're into. Okay, moving on. So it says that and this has another thing to do with maybe how we feel about women being human traffickers. It says 71% of enslaved people are women and girls.
Mm,
Men and boys account for 29%.
okay. Yeah. So, I mean, that would make sense because I think, women, physically may be easier to control,
Yeah.
because if you have like a big, strong man there, maybe they could fight their way out, I guess.
It's possible, or maybe they choose women over. I don't know.
Yeah.
And
I don't
this
know
goes on.
either.
I know. Is it really worth trying to figure out? I mean, it's always with certain things. It's always women and girls. Um, I just saw something about. Oh, okay. Wait. Something about reports indicate that a large number of child sex trafficking survivors in the United States were at one time in the foster care system.
I did read
Ugh.
that. I read that, like, kids who run away, or are in the foster care system, and then all of a sudden they turn 18 and they're not in the foster care system anymore, and they don't really have anywhere to go, so they're on the streets. They are at a higher risk of,
Yeah,
because they're kids. They don't know how to protect themselves, and then somebody
exactly.
comes and is like, "Hey, I can help you with like a place to live and food," and it sounds so great to them, and
Well,
then
of
they
course.
end
And
up in this situation.
they don't know any better. I mean, if I were a kid being approached, at naive as I was as a kid, I wouldn't have thought I would have been lured into something. It's just that's not what your parents really spoke to you about. Sex trafficking or human
Right.
trafficking. I mean, just because it was so hush hush. It just I don't know. Do you have any other facts? Because I can talk about,
Uh,
how people get.
I mean, I have a lot of the same facts as you. I I learned this. People who and this was interesting to me. Traveling sales crews, like people who travel into other people's homes to do sales, they have the highest rate of calls to human trafficking hotlines.
What?
Yes. So, and this is what happens. Like, so people who are over, like, independent contractors, I guess they're, because they're like going into homes, and they notice people, they have domestic, it's like they have like domestically indentured people, like their
Hmm.
maid or their cook or whoever's in their house. They realize that they are not there of their own free will, and so they call.
Jeez.
Yeah, and I just, so I went in kind of a rabbit hole, like reading about that because I was like, who are these people who have like they have, house staff
Yeah.
that are slaves, and they said it's often like, upper middle class
Oh my
couples, and
God.
they hire a service, and then they, get sent a maid or a nanny or whatever, and
Mm,
they just work in their home. And I said, well,
wow.
how? And then they said a lot of times when those cases come to light, the couple that's employing, quote unquote, employing these people, they say that they didn't know, that they just pay the service and that
Oh
they think,
God.
and I think, how could you not know? Like if someone was living and working in my home,
Oh, they
I
know.
would know
Of
because I would
course.
talk to them and I would get
Mhm.
to know them as a human.
Of
And I
course.
said, they would
Well, that
know.
they're full of shit. Of course they're going to say
Yeah.
that.
I said, they're just trying to keep themselves out of trouble.
Of course. So stupid. It really is. Okay, and so I had found, and this is what I was talking about, tips, like what are ways to reduce, becoming a victim of human trafficking. And so these are some of the things that I had found on this website that's called newsomelaw.com. And it's all kind of very obvious, but they say basically always tell a family member where you're at and safety words with loved
Oh,
ones, which I like
you
that too.
know,
You should always have a
we do.
safety word.
And so
Like if
Mark and I set that up a
good,
long time ago and you know what? I think it's because I listen to all these true crime podcasts and I'm addicted to true crime. And so I was like,
that's
look,
good.
I have to be able to, I said, because they're going to have me call you because I'm going to say my boyfriend's expecting me home and they're going to have me call you and I'm going to tell you our code word and then you're going to know I'm in trouble.
Mm. You have to try and fit it into a sentence, right?
Right. And so we did it on foods that we don't like, steer the
Oh,
conversation to dinner and like make sure you mention, like, say that you want this particular food, and then it will alert the other one that they know, he knows I don't eat that food, I don't like it. So he'll know that I'm in
yeah,
trouble. And that way
exactly.
we,
And also, like, why are you bringing that up?
right.
It would make him think, right?
Right. Like, why are you all of a sudden, but then he would know. And I shared my, like, I mean, I just went on a road trip. And so, of course, I was by myself.
Right.
So I shared my location with both my mom and Mark
Oh,
so
good,
that
good, good,
they
good,
would know. And anytime I was going to stop, I would just send them a quick text. This is where I am.
good.
I mean, so I don't know if that's one of the tips, but it makes me feel better.
I actually left the page, but I'm actually there was another site that I found about protecting yourself, which might be exactly the same, but I will tell you, having like a code word is the easiest and one of the smartest things I think. Even if you're like hanging out with a friend and you don't want to hang out with them anymore for the
Oh, yeah.
night, and
Yes.
and you just happen to be on the phone, I mean, it's like, the thing is that I'm afraid that like my husband would completely forget. Like if I'm talking about liver, he'd be like, "Why are you talking about liver?"
Right. Like, what?
I just
Right. And then he would
and
completely
there I
out
am
you.
being, now I'm going to Oshkosh B'gosh, and he doesn't even know where I am, and then gonna wake up one day and be like, "Oh shit, she said liver."
Yeah, right. Like it would be
Okay,
after
so
you've been missing, then it would dawn on him.
yeah. Oh, for God's sake. Okay, moving on. Well, of course, it says avoid walking alone,
Yes.
and
You
it
know,
actually says that women have been forcibly kidnapped
I want to
while walking on the street.
I
Oh,
want
that's
to
so
say that a
scary.
lot of these tips are ones that we as women have
Yes,
adopted our entire lives
I agree. Yes,
because there are
I
things that we
agree.
have always had to
Yep.
watch out for.
It's funny, and I know this is like such a really bad comparison, really bad. But I'm just gonna say because I'm stuck now. It's like when I walk dogs, I actually have a plan if a dog comes after me. Aside from always carrying pepper spray, if a dog were to come after me, instead of me running and jumping on a car or whatever, I would look immediately because I'm in a community. I would immediately look for the closest house where I can run. Yes, run that has a
Oh
gate.
yes,
So I
and get
can just
behind the
go
gate.
through the gate, and that'll be it. But like, I had to put some serious thought into what would I do if I was being attacked. Well, not being attacked, but almost being attacked. And I still had a little bit of distance where I knew I could, if I ran fast enough, I might be able to get. And I'm like, well, where am I going to run, on top of a car or whatever? And then I thought, oh, duh. I live in a community with tons of pools and people that have fences.
Yeah,
Like, I could just go in someone's backyard right away. That's if I can outrun a four-legged furry animal that wants to chew my ass, you know? But it's kind of like this, and having to kind of be on guard. And one of the things it says about is acting swiftly if you're suspicious. And they say, go into the nearest building and wait for the person to leave, or alert someone in the building you're being followed. I mean, you're right. I don't know if too many men would think of doing something like that, because they wouldn't think that they would, you know, be a victim of human trafficking. But you're right. As a woman, we're kind of predisposed, and maybe we've seen it on TV 1,000 times or learned it from our parents, that we always have to be looking
right.
at our, behind us to see
Yes.
what's going on,
I mean,
and not to trust
right, not to
easily
trust.
either.
I think one of the, and I, again, on my true crime podcast, one of the things they said was they have these cases over and over where someone didn't want to be rude. Like someone was making them uncomfortable, or, they felt suspicious, but they continued to want to be polite to them. And, I just think, and like, so I think that's like ignoring your instincts.
It is your gut, right?
Yeah, your
what
gut
we get,
feeling.
what we have, especially becoming moms, our gut has probably become the best thing in our livelihood. I would say that I think has probably helped us to make some of the best decisions.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and I think,
and still going with that,
and and again, it's with women. We're taught to be more polite. We don't want to be rude. But if somebody's creeping you out and you think that they're gonna kidnap you or do something bad to you, then you should definitely be rude, and you should walk into a store and tell someone, find security.
I agree. And you know what? I also think it's more of the younger generation. There are quite a few in the younger generation that really do have, a nice set of cojones, where they are totally fine in acting how I would have probably wanted to act. But I also think it's something as I get older, but it's very important when you have, especially a girl, that as a parent, you teach them these things. And it's sad, and it's not something that most parents think of having to discuss with their kids, which is why it's good we're talking about it, because it's obviously happening a lot today, and it's something that women and younger women and girls have to know about. It's no different than stranger danger that I had to teach my son
right
when he was in school. You just have to always know your surroundings and try never to walk alone. It says here, be ready for anything. Oh, it says carry pepper spray with you on your keychain. Yep. Yeah, me too. And it says you need to mentally prepare yourself to fight off the abductor. If you begin to be attacked, make a scene, yell, fight back like your life depends on it.
Yeah.
Because your life probably
does. Yeah.
And you know what? Also, it talks about using social media wisely, like we were talking about before.
And this is something that I have gotten onto. My niece is 13, and she's allowed to have social media. And of course, she has me on it, my mom, it's family on it a lot. But on Instagram, it's private. So not just anybody can see her stuff. But she kept putting her location, like tagging her location. And I said, you have to stop doing that. And she's like, but it's private. And I said, yes, but there are people who could hack in. They could make a fake profile pretending to be one of your friends. They could, I said, there's just a lot of ways. I said, you just don't tag your location. I said, if you want to do that, do it at a later time, like not while you're still there. I said, because you're just telling people this is where I am, come and get me.
But you know what, too, I just want to tag on to that and say that I think it's a better idea not to ever put it, because no matter what, especially with social media and hackers, if they find out where you live, or like today, I went to the Japanese gardens and I actually put it in, but I'm thinking of taking it out now. But by doing that, people now know where I might live and
Right.
so on
You
and so
live
forth.
close
And
to this. This is a place that you
right.
could frequently go.
Exactly. And although I'm no longer there today, I'm making it very obvious kind of where I live. But more so for young kids, their privacy settings, just they have to just be really careful. And the thing of it is there's so many apps out there now that you can get where you can keep track of your child. With just one app, and that's it. And all of your other location services, can be turned off. So you can keep track of where your child is. And me and my husband have that too. So he
Yes.
can always see where I am, in the event that like I don't get back to him. He can see exactly where I am.
That's what Mark and I have done. And he's like,
But also don't forget that, you could they can take your phone away from you and the last place you were at does not mean that that's where you are now.
yeah.
So it's,
Yeah. And that's what we talked about. And I recently learned about a thing for, because if you do go missing, it takes police like several weeks to be able to get into your phone, your bank account, etc., to see
all
where
that,
you might
yeah.
be using. So I mean, and it's kind of morbid, but creating a missing folder, if I go missing, here's the passwords to all of my things, so you can log
Mm-hmm.
into my bank account and see when the last time my card's been used. And I told Mark, I said,
Mm-hmm.
don't think I'm crazy, but like, here is this, like, if I go missing, like, here are all my passwords, so you can get in there and see if there's anything weird, or
That's
you know
perfect. That's a great
and
idea.
he's like, I don't think that's weird. He's like, it's kind of smart, because I mean, obviously he's
Mm-hmm.
going into law enforcement, and um he's like, I think that that's a good idea. I think more
So do
people
I,
would
yeah.
be, like, if I could log into your bank account immediately and say, this is the last place she used a card, and that was at this time, now we have a place to start.
I agree. And you know what? I think in today's environment, nothing is too stupid. I don't think that being cautious is being stupid. I
I
think
don't
there's
think so
nothing
either,
wrong with it.
because
Yeah, I don't think so.
there's so many things that happen. It's just, I don't know, it's kind of scary.
It is very scary. It's scary, and it's scary that it's still going on. How do we not have a handle on all of this stuff that's going on? What's the real deal? There's a real reason why this is still happening, and that's why I'm saying that money has got to be going into the pockets of our government, because this would have been stopped. It can be stopped, just like the drugs, that are coming into this country can stop. And I just think it's another money making scheme, just like that they could have been able to find a cure for cancer, diabetes, so on and so forth.
Right.
I'm no scientist, of course, but I still have this belief that if they can come up with drugs for certain ailments, then they can do the same thing when it comes to cancer. And what what is it that's taking so long? Is it because
Well,
of the pharmaceutical
yeah,
companies? I
I
mean,
think because it's more profitable to treat
yeah.
rather than to cure.
Well,
You
yes, and
know?
that's why they this whole let's cure cancer thing. I hate to say it, and but I am going to admit that's one of the reasons why I won't continue to give money towards cancer organizations, because I feel like it's moot. If the money is going to go towards trying to find a cure, I'm not going to give you your money, because you will never find a cure because you're told not to find a cure. But if it can go towards the treatment of for people with cancer, then I will still continue to
Right.
donate.
But you're not looking for a cure, so let's stop
Well, we
pretending
know
we
they're not
are.
looking for a cure, which is why it's like, well, where is my money going? Like, if I know someone who was diagnosed with cancer and maybe doesn't have insurance and they have a GoFundMe page or whatever it is, I would be 100% in, because first of all, I know the person, but secondly, I know that the money is hoping that the money is going to go towards helping them pay medical bills.
Right.
Whatever small amount that I could give, I'm happy to give. But if it's going to go towards bullshit, of trying to find a cure, which they haven't found yet. And just no, I would rather know that it's going towards the people who need the money,
Right.
not the industry, because it's just, anyway, let me just mention that anyone that's listening to this, if you ever need to contact um, like Homeland Security regarding human trafficking, if you have any questions or if you think that you know of someone that might have been a victim, there's a website that's humantraffickinghotline.org. And also there's a national human trafficking hotline, which is 888-373-7888. And also you can text help or info to 233-733, 24 hours, 7 days a week. I'm glad that we spoke about this, and I'm glad that, we were able to shed some light on this, not just for those who are listening, but for us, because all it does is make you think even more that, this shit is still happening, and we have to teach our kids, and they have to teach their
Yep.
kids, and so on and so forth. And I think that the more you make information available to those people who don't know, then the less it will happen.
Yeah, and I think like people like being aware, like I think a lot of people are like, oh, well, I don't want to call, like that looked suspicious, but I don't want to call. I don't want to bother the police with that if it was nothing. But it could be something, and I think we should err on the
Absolutely.
side of let's call, and if somebody gets mad that we called because it was nothing, then fine. But if it was something, then we could have potentially saved someone's life or really helped someone.
Absolutely. And you know what? I'll tell you, I'm like that too. I'm kind of like, well,
Me too.
what,
Yeah,
and I'll get like that. But I know I've said this so many times, but it's so true. As I get older, I don't give a shit. I just
right.
go with my gut, and I'm just like, fuck
Right.
it.
Yeah, that's
Like if I see
exactly. If
something,
I see something
because you
now,
know
I'm
what?
gonna call. And if it's nothing,
Good.
great. But if it's
Because
something,
you know what? Right. It could be something, and you could save a life. I mean, okay. I'm just gonna say this one last thing. It is against the law now in Florida to leave a dog in a hot car. I don't know why it took so
yes, it is
long.
a law here as well.
And
And I don't understand why it took so long because
good. It's
when it's
ridiculous.
118 degrees here in the summer, why are
Oh,
you leaving your dog in a car?
I don't get that at all. Idiots. But I know someone who was at the mall and there was a dog in the car, and she recorded this. She recorded the dog in the car, and I think she might have even put the license plate. I don't remember, but she called 911,
Yeah.
and they came, and I think that she stayed anonymous. And anyway, they showed the woman talking to the cops. What happened? I don't know. But the fact of the matter is instead of just walking by and saying, oh, maybe the dog's only been in there for a second,
Right.
or maybe the air conditioning is on, I don't care. You
Right.
still don't leave a dog in the car. It's
No.
like leaving a child in the car and saying,
No.
I was just in the store for 2 minutes with the air conditioning on. When it was frigid in New York and I had to go just to the dry cleaner for my husband because he desperately needed me to pick up his dry cleaning because he was going to come home late and it was going to be closed, I would have to wrap myself up, wrap my son up, blah, 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 go to the dry cleaners. And it took me 3 seconds, but I still had to
Yes.
unbelt my son, to pick him up, take him out, go back. It turned into so much of a longer ordeal. But hell, would have it would have
So,
frozen over. Hell would have frozen over if I actually left my dog. My dog. I swear I'm so tired. Yeah, I left my dog in freezing cold temperatures. I would never have left my son even for
no.
less than a second. It's
Right,
just not
because
me. And there are people
there
that
are
do.
people that do it, and I have seen people do it. I have seen people like they just need to run inside the store and the baby's sleeping in the car. And I've seen them like, and
Oh,
one day I saw a girl and you could tell she was contemplating it, like her card wouldn't work at the gas pump. And so she was going to need to go in and pay. And the baby was sleeping in the car, and she looked
no,
and
no,
she
no,
looked
no.
up there and I was at the gas pump next to her and I said, don't do it.
You
I
said
just
it?
said it like I was like, "Don't do it," and she was like, oh. I was just like,
That
And
is
Mark
great.
laughed, and he's like, and I was like, I was like, I get it. I was a single mom when Jacob was little. There was, I had to take him everywhere. I said there were so many times like it would have been so much easier if I could have just ran in really fast and not like unbuckled him and done all everything. I said, but I
Of
was
course.
so scared that what if something happens in that split second? What if something happens?
Yes. That would have been it. And I'll tell you something. Don't have a kid if you feel that you're going to be inconvenienced, even for the shortest period of time. Don't have a
Right,
kid
because you are going to be inconvenienced literally all of the
for the
time
rest of
for
your
the
life.
rest of your life. If you have children, you will literally
Rest
be
of your life.
inconvenienced all of the time.
It's so true. But look, I don't want to say don't have a kid. I mean, some people just, it happens and whatever. But it's just so important that you are cognizant of what's going on and not be naive and think, oh, it's not going to happen to my kid, because it
Right.
can.
Because
It can definitely happen. And like you said, a split
right. And
second. Every parent knows that if you like turn your head for a split second, your kid is like across the street. You
right.
just have to be so on top of them. And the last thing you need to do is to leave them in a car
And
by themselves. I
every
can't.
single person who has had something happen that's tragic will tell you the same thing. We never thought it could happen to us.
Never thought.
Well,
Yep. And then
that's
it
what
does.
everybody thinks, but like you've seen
Yep.
those stories of like where the car gets stolen and the baby is in the back seat
Oh,
because the parent
sure.
was in the store or something.
Just don't leave your
Just
kids,
don't do
guys.
that. Don't leave any.
Because, there's lots of human trafficking going on and crazy people
Right.
out there. And
See, and
just
that
don't
would be
do
a
it.
perfect opportunity for someone who has bad intentions to grab a kid out of a car.
Absolutely. And you know what? Again, I know it's an inconvenience sometimes, but you know what? You don't know what could happen during that time when you do make that decision. And it's not a decision. It's something that you should do no matter what. It shouldn't be something you'd have to be contemplating like that girl at the gas station. Just no.
Yeah, just don't do it.
Just
Just don't
don't
do
do
it.
it. It's the opposite of the Nike commercial. Just don't do it. All right, honey. So please tell the listeners how they can get in touch with you and all the things that you're
So
doing.
they can see any of my social media. It's just the Rhonda Marie pretty much everywhere. And everything links back to Clothesline Apparel Company, which is an apparel company with
Yay.
shirts and stuff. Um, yeah, and
And then your newest
my
venture,
my
tell them
newest
about that.
venture, I have gotten certified to be a mental health and mindset coach. And so I have a coaching group on Facebook. And that's all through just the Rhonda Marie social medias because we talked about that before. I can't do any more social media.
Yep. And I am nothing but Julie. That's on basically all social media. And also check out my blog. I have been trying very hard to do it on a weekly basis. So check that out. You could just go to Instagram and check out my links, or you could just go to nothingbutjulie.wordpress.com. Thanks so much, Rhonda. I know this was a pretty heavy
It
topic, but I'm
was.
glad that we covered
Yes.
it. All
All right.
right. You have a
You
great
too,
weekend.
Julie. All right.
All right.